Good morning and welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be trying to get the bodywork finished up, ready for the conversion. Stripped out most of the flooring now. The piece of wood behind me is pretty much the only bit left inside, so I'll show you some of that. The repair for the rear arch, done the other side now. Obviously the one side was already done, so this side, and seal it all up. Fit the tow bar and any other little bits and pieces we can get ready then for laying the floor down. I've already taken up the flooring that was already in here, and obviously this was a builder's van and it's a bit of a mess under the floor. So there is areas of the floor where it's got rust, even though this is only a 3-year-old van. It's quite surprising how much rust is on it. The rear arch, when I push it up, it'll split, same as this side. It'll just need welding up, stripping down, and then stone chip inside and out and paint. So that's straightforward enough. That's pretty much it. We'll get on with the video. Thank you. So this is the replacement side loading door. Now, although the outside is pretty much perfect, the inside did have a few dings and dents and scratches from where it's been in storage. So rather than mess around, we just stripped the bits off, cleaned it up, rubbed it down and painted it. This just makes it look tidier. It's one of the things that you can see when you're inside the van, mostly around the window aperture and stuff like that. So that's all done. Fairly happy with this, and definitely a lot better than the one that was originally on the van. So get the van ready now to put this on. So the bottom of the side step was also very messed up, had a lot of resin and bits and pieces in there, and actually had some rust on the bottom. So it's all been cleaned up, primered, treated, painted. So that's all good now. It's all just sealed up, ready. Much nicer and cleaner than it was. So the replacement side loading door, it's all fitted. Still got a little bit of adjustment to do on some of the gaps. We're not 100% sure about the colour match. It's very difficult to tell indoors, but it looks slightly out, so that may have to be painted as well on the outside, but we'll have to get it outside and have a good look at it to tell. But certainly fits a lot better, and there's no damage on it, which is the main thing. The other one stuck out at the bottom there, but this one is pretty good. So really happy with that. Show you the door. So we're getting there. We're very close now to finishing the van off. So both rear arches were in a similar state before we started. Obviously the left one there we've pushed back out as best we can. It doesn't have to be perfect because it's all going to be boxed in anyway, and you're not actually going to see it. What's more important is to make sure it's all sealed up and in roughly the right shape, because they're so flat that the tires were actually rubbing on the arch itself. So like I say, we've done the left one, just put it on time lapse now, and we'll do the right one too. So the first thing you see me do here is try and get the arch roughly back into shape. So using a combination of different sized blocks of wood and a trolley jack and a couple of different hammers, basically just pushing up on the arch from underneath and stretching the metal back out. Over the years, where they've been putting pallets in the back of here, obviously they've just flattened this arch completely. And although all you got to do in theory is just push it back out, it's not quite as easy as that, because the metal is so badly creased in a lot of areas. It's tearing, and once those creases are in, they're very difficult to get out. I can't get to both sides, so just my arms aren't physically long enough, and even doing it with two people really isn't very easy to do. You're not quite in the right spot, but by putting pressure underneath with the jack and the wood, and then using the hammer just to iron out as many dents as you can, it kind of came out okay. This did take a fair while because the access isn't as good as you'd think, with the axle still on there. Obviously it's a big axle being a twin wheel van, but working around that and just pushing everything out, got it roughly back into shape. Okay, so a lot better than it was. Same as the other side, it's managed to open up a few holes where it was so badly creased and damaged. So the next job then, straighten it out a little bit more and then weld up the holes and start sealing it up ready. But overall, a lot better than it was. Like I said, it's not got to be perfect because you won't actually see these at all in the van. They'll be boxed in as part of the garage and from underneath just fully sealed up. So the next part of the process then would be to clean up all the areas that need a repair. So what I'm using to do this is an angle grinder with a wire wheel attachment. Now this is a twisted knotted wire wheel, something like that it's called, and it's really aggressive, very quick at getting down to metal and getting the rust out. And you can see how quickly it's taking the paint off. In fact, if you left it on the paint or on the metal for any length of time, it would actually eat a hole into the metal. But although the paint flies off, unfortunately so do the little bristles, and they are very stiff. They're not like a wire brush on a drill. These are very hard and they come off with a lot of force, so definitely wear your PPE for this, a full face mask and a pair of gloves or goggles at the very minimum. So you need to clean the inside and the outside because the sealer will potentially catch fire, and even if it does extinguish itself, it will leave an air gap underneath the sealer where you have another potential for rust to start. So by cleaning inside and out, it just saves the need to have somebody spotting you outside. It's always a good idea to have that anyway, just in case you miss something, but by cleaning up the sealer it won't catch fire and you can just carry on and weld the inside. To get in and out at this point is very difficult and a bit of a pain. So using the welder and the hammer and then getting some heat into it and using the hammer then just to knock things back into place, get it localized repairs, and then using the wire wheel again just to clean everything up. This does take a fair bit of time. There's a lot of little splits in this and you can't rush it because you just burn the holes into the metal. Didn't have to actually add any metal to this one. Like the other side, I did have to weld a patch into the other side, but this side all the splits were fairly minor. There was only one really sort of awkward one, and even that I managed to weld up without adding any extra metal to it. So it's kind of better in a way, but it does take a little time to do. So once you've managed to weld up all the holes, what I've done then is grab the Black & Decker power file and just take the edge off the tops off all the welds. This just helps reduce their size and stops them protruding out into where it's got to be boxed in basically. So back with the wire wheel then, just taking the last bits and pieces of paint off and clean up the welds, make sure it's as clean as you can get it. And then what I'm using here is a mini DA sander just to help smooth everything out a bit. Use a quite aggressive disc. I think I used 120 or 180 grit disc on this. Probably could have used a 40 or an 80 grit disc, probably would have been quicker and easier. But I didn't really want to take anything down to bare metal. It didn't really need it, but definitely need all the loose paint off, and it just helps smooth things out. So at this point I realised that there was a bit of bubbling right at the bottom of the arch that I couldn't get to, so I've taken that section of floor out and given it a quick clean up just to help see where everything is damaged or any potential rust areas. And although the paint was bubbling, there wasn't really any rust here, but the paint was coming away from the arch, so give it everything a good clean. Again, the combination of the wire brush, the sander and the Black & Decker file just to clean everything up. Once that was done, it was basically I did the same with the other side. So I lifted the floor up on the other side and did the same thing, because there's just small bubbles and bits and pieces at the bottom of the arch that you can't get to when the floor is in. So once that was done, then it was basically ready for stone chip. So from this point I moved on to trying to get the tow bar and the rear step fitted. Okay, so the tow bar I showed in one of the other videos is now fitted to the van, and that just literally bolts in underneath. I'll show you a shot of that in a second. But we wanted a lower step to work with the tow bar, and we couldn't actually buy one for this van because it's rear wheel drive. You couldn't get the combination of lower step and tow bar together. So what I've had to do is actually modify the step to fit around the tow bar. I've still got to trim up the plastic to go on it, but that's all fitted now. It took a little bit of work, but it's worked out okay. And if I show you a shot underneath now and show you what I've done, you can see that it's all mounted solid now. So that, really pleased with that, the way it was worked. Very difficult to film doing it because of where it was and how I was doing it, but that's the result. So moving on to the arches, and you'll see now that they're both been stone chipped and not painted, but the outside is painted, but the inside are just painted with stone chip. But you can see now that although they look quite rough when I was working on them, that they are the right shape basically now, and fairly uniform. The sealer will get painted over on the inside, but again, these are going to be boxed in inside the van, so you're not going to see these at all. They'll be in the garage underneath the bed, but just gives you a better idea of how they turned out. Now the rust on the floor that we mentioned here, there's a couple of patches, this one, and it is only light surface rust, but for a 3.5-year-old van it's really not so good. It's quite surprising really that a van can be that rusty that quickly. I appreciate the van has had a hard life. It was a builder's merchant's van and obviously it's got used, but it's not really what you expect from Volkswagen for what's a 3.5-year-old van, so not great. So that is going to be about it for this video. Like I said, please do like and subscribe if you can. It really does help the channel out, and we'll catch you again soon on the next one. Thanks, goodbye.